Daniel didn't look like the type of child people would call special. He was small for his age, quiet, and always found a corner to sit in during family gatherings. But from the time he turned 5, something unusual started happening in the house. He woke up every morning with stories that didn't sound like the usual. I saw cartoons in my dream. His dreams were detailed, exact, and unsettlingly accurate. The first one happened on an ordinary Thursday. "Mommy, I saw that Auntie Biola will lose her phone today." His mother laughed. "She can't lose her phone. She got it more than her life." But that evening, the phone disappeared at the bus stop. Everyone was shocked, but they brushed it off. Children say funny things. Sometimes it just aligns. But it didn't stop there. He started waking up with dreams about people in their compound, people in the church, people his parents didn't even know personally. And every single thing he said, down to the smallest detail, happened exactly the way he said it. His parents didn't know whether to be scared or proud. Their son wasn't ordinary. One Saturday morning, Daniel walked into the kitchen holding his slippers. "Mommy, God told me Daddy should not travel on Monday." "God?" She blinked, unsure how to respond. "How did God tell you?" Daniel shrugged. "I just heard it. Not from someone I can see, but it was loud, inside." His father laughed it off and traveled anyway. 2 days later, the car he boarded caught fire on the road. He escaped only because he stepped down just few seconds before it happened. That was the turning point. From that day, the family stopped seeing Daniel as a child. He became something else, the boy who hears from God. But he was still a child, a 7-year-old who liked cartoons and biscuits. Yet, his parents treated him like a walking miracle. They decided to take him to a pastor, Prophet Jeremiah, a man known for quiet prayers, not drama. They believed he could guide the boy, teach him control, help him understand what he carried. Prophet Jeremiah didn't shout or shake when they told him about Daniel. He simply looked at the boy for a long time and said, "Let him stay with me for a while. He needs training. He needs silence." Daniel didn't want to go, but he didn't know how to say no. His parents insisted, and the next week, he moved into the small room behind Prophet's church. That was when things changed. The church used to have maybe 20 members, a small hall, few plastic chairs, nothing remarkable. But when Daniel started speaking over people, things shifted. He didn't prophesy like adults, no long grammar. He said simple things. "Uncle, the job you're waiting for will come next week." "Auntie, somebody is planning to disappoint you, don't agree." "Sir, check your store tonight, something is leaking." And they all came to pass. People returned with testimonies, jobs, business breakthroughs, healed sicknesses, restored marriages, and they returned with gifts also. Generators, foodstuff, money, and a brand new car. The prophet, who didn't own even a bicycle before, suddenly became a man of influence. More people came, a crowd formed. The church overflowed to the streets. And every time Prophet Jeremiah prayed, he made sure Daniel stood beside him, hands joined, eyes closed, looking like the power was flowing through him. Daniel's parents saw the transformation and it burned them silently. They remembered the prophet's old life, the patched shirts, the cracked sandals, the church that was practically empty. Now, he was building a bigger auditorium. He changed his wardrobe. He drove a new SUV. He was celebrated everywhere, all because of their child. Nobody gave Daniel anything. Nobody gave them anything. No compensation, no appreciation, not even one thank you. As far as the parents were concerned, the prophet was eating the fruits of their tree. One evening, as Daniel's mother cooked, she said quietly, "We can't leave our son here. He is the one carrying this church." His father agreed immediately. "We are being used. Something must change." And that was the beginning of their downfall, though they didn't know it yet. The next morning, They stormed the church compound and took Daniel home. Prophet Jeremiah tried to stop them. "He's not ready yet," the prophet pleaded. "You are taking him too fast." But they didn't care. Their minds were made up. A week later, they made a decision that surprised even them. They would open their own church, and Daniel would be the center of it. Within 1 month, they rented a hall. Within 3 months, it was full. Daniel continued seeing visions, giving warnings, revealing secrets. People fell to the ground when he touched them. Prayers were answered, more testimonies, more gifts, more money. Cars, land, cash envelopes running into millions. His parents didn't even hide their excitement. They celebrated loudly. They lived large. They told everyone their son was the chosen one. They were finally enjoying what they believed Prophet Jeremiah had stolen from them. But something else was happening behind the scenes. Daniel was changing. He became quieter, more withdrawn, more absent, even when he was in the room. Sometimes he walked around as if he was listening to someone nobody else could hear. His dreams grew heavier, and some nights he woke up sweating, his voice shaking, saying, "Mommy, I don't want to do this anymore." But he didn't listen. How could they? The church was booming. They needed him. They depended on him. And then the atmosphere in the house shifted, not visibly, but Daniel felt it first. Something was coming, something that would expose everything, something that would end what they had built with greed. And it all started with one dream, a dream that looked nothing like others, a dream that would shake their foundation and pull down everything they built. Not because God wanted to punish Daniel, but because the people driving the gift were already heading towards a crash, and this time, there would be no warning they could ignore. Daniel's parents believed they had finally found their place in life. Their church was expanding faster than they could manage. Members filled every seat. They stood outside. They sat in borrowed canopies. People traveled from other states just to be prayed for by the boy with the voice. They made sure Daniel stood in front every Sunday, small, innocent, dressed in white, looking like the purest vessel God ever sent. But behind closed doors, things were completely different. Daniel no longer slept well. He hardly ate. His eyes were always tired, like someone was dragging him between two worlds. His mother would shake him awake each morning. "Daniel, stand up. People are already waiting." Sometimes he whispered, "Just 10 minutes, please." "No," she snapped, "get up." His father was even worse. He monitored Daniel like a machine. Eat, pray, prophesy, wake up, sleep, repeat. Daniel was no longer their son. He was the source of their income. And the truth, they didn't see it that way. They believed they were doing God's work. They convinced themselves they were helping their son use his gift. But they knew the truth also. They loved life, they loved the money, they loved the fame. One night, Daniel sat on his bed staring at the wall. The ceiling fan spun lazily, humming just loud enough to distract him. He didn't even realize he'd been sitting there for 2 hours until he heard a faint whisper. At first, he thought it was part of a dream, but he wasn't asleep. The whisper came again, quiet, clear, and close. "Daniel." He froze. The voice wasn't threatening. It wasn't comforting either. It was heavy, like someone was calling him from very far and very near at the same time. "Daniel, your time is almost up here." He swallowed hard, his small chest tightening. "What time?" He whispered back in fear, but the voice didn't answer. His bedroom door opened slowly. His mother's head appeared. "Why are you awake? Tomorrow is deliverance service. Sleep now." He wanted to tell her. He wanted to say he was scared. He wanted to say he was hearing things again. Not prophecy, not dreams, just a warning that felt like danger. But he kept quiet. Any sign of weakness only made them push him harder. So he lay down and pretended to sleep. The next morning, the church overflowed again. The crowd was bigger than usual. A politician's wife had come for prayer. His parents were excited. Big people meant big seed. But when the woman came forward, Daniel just stared. He didn't speak. He didn't prophesy. He didn't even blink. His parents panicked. "Daniel, talk now." His father whispered through clenched teeth. Daniel's hands were shaking. He felt dizzy, like the room was spinning. The woman got offended. Members whispered. His parents dragged him inside angrily and locked the office door. "What is wrong with you?" his mother shouted. "You embarrassed us." Daniel burst into tears. "I didn't hear anything, nothing. I didn't see anything." His parents exchanged a worried look. If Daniel stopped hearing, the church would collapse. Later that night, after scolding him and desperate attempts to force a prophecy out of him, Daniel's father finally said what he'd been hiding in his heart. "We need to take him back to that prophet," he muttered nervously. His wife gasped. "Never. That man will claim ownership again." Their conversation grew heated. Anger, fear, accusations. All the while, Daniel sat on the floor in the hallway listening. For once, they were scared, not of God, not of the gift, but of losing everything they had gained. Deep inside, Daniel knew something his parents didn't understand. The gift was never theirs, and they were pushing something that wasn't meant to be used this way. By the next week, the pressure increased. People complained, prophecies were shorter. Daniel hesitated more. The atmosphere felt heavy. His parents started forcing him to fast. His father locked him in the church some nights for spiritual alignment. They scolded him for sleeping too much. Daniel didn't know how to tell them the truth. It wasn't that he couldn't hear anymore. He could, but the voice had changed. It wasn't giving warnings or telling him about people's contracts. It wasn't telling him who would fall sick or who would get a promotion. Now, it was only saying one thing. Something is about to break. The turning point came 2 weeks later. The church hosted a 3-day revival. People packed the place like a festival. They brought mats, food, water, prepared to stay until they received answers. Daniel felt sick every minute of it. On the last night, during worship, he suddenly walked off the stage. His mother ran after him. "Where are you going? People are waiting." He sat on the stairs outside and held his head between his hands. "Mommy, it's too loud." The voice keeps talking. She knelt beside him. "What voice?" "I don't know, but it keeps saying something bad is coming, something big." She stiffened. "Bad from where?" Daniel shook his head helplessly. "I don't know." She stood up. Her face changed instantly. "No more fear talk," she snapped. "Get inside. People came for prophecy." Daniel didn't move. She grabbed his arm. "Mommy, it's not like before." He cried. "I don't want to do this anymore." And for the first time, she said something without thinking. "Daniel, you don't have a choice." He stared at her, stunned. That was the moment he realized something he'd been refusing to admit. His parents were not protecting him anymore. They were protecting the church, the money, the fame, not him. That night, he had a dream, the kind he had never seen before. He wasn't seeing visions of neighbors. He wasn't hearing warnings for strangers. This dream was about him. He saw himself standing at the top of a very tall building, so tall that he couldn't see the ground properly. His parents were below, cheering him on, clapping proudly, telling him to go higher and higher. He kept climbing stairs, kept going up, even though the building began to shake. At the top, he turned back, but instead of pride or love, he saw desperation in his parents' eyes, the kind people have when they are afraid of losing access to something valuable. And then the worst part happened. The building began to crack. One long line across the middle, another below. Then the whole structure tilted. Daniel screamed as it collapsed, every floor crashing into the next in seconds. He fell with it. Helpless, dust swallowing him whole. Just as the rubble was about to bury him alive, a hand pulled him out. A calm voice said, "They are raising you the wrong way." He woke up yelling. Sweat poured down his face. His throat was dry. His heart raced like it wanted to jump out. He sat up in the dark, breathing hard. This wasn't like the other dreams. This one was personal. This one was warning him about a downfall, not of strangers, but of them, of the system, of the altar, of everything built on greed. He hugged his knees and cried quietly. He knew something his parents refused to see. A collapse was coming, a public one, a painful one, and he could feel it getting closer. But even he didn't know how it would start. He didn't know what would expose them. He didn't know how the truth would burst open. He only knew one thing: the gift that lifted them was about to tear everything down, and this time there would be no escape. Daniel woke up the next morning after the dream, feeling strangely light, almost empty. Not peaceful, not relieved, just empty. He dragged his feet as he got ready for church. His parents had already shouted his name twice. Today was Thanksgiving and Testimony Sunday, the biggest Sunday of the month, the most profitable one too. The church was already full when they arrived. The ushers struggled to control the crowd. People stood at the windows, on the corridors, outside under the sun, all waiting for Daniel. His parents smiled proudly as they stepped in. "Look at what God has done," his father said loudly to anyone who cared to listen. Daniel walked behind them quietly, staring at the people who believed it was something supernatural. Some were crying before he even touched them. Some lifted their babies for him to bless. Some waved envelopes with testimonies they wanted him to confirm. He felt sick, not because he hated them, but because he knew none of this was safe anymore. The service started. Praise, shout, dancing, energy. Then came the testimony segment. A man in a suit climbed the stage, grabbed the mic and screamed, "Church, praise the Lord." The boy said my contract would come. It came. 10 million naira deposit. People screamed. The next person, and the next, and the next. Testimony after testimony, all tied to Daniel. His parents sat on the front row smiling like royalty. His father whispered to his mother, "By December, we will expand this church. The crowd is already too much." She nodded with satisfaction. Everything seemed normal. Nothing hinted at the storm that was approaching. When it was time for Daniel to come forward, his father tapped him sharply on the shoulder. "Move." Daniel stepped onto the stage. The hall erupted in cheers. Phones were out. People knelt. People stretched their hands towards him. Daniel opened his mouth and nothing came out. Just emptiness. He tried again. Still nothing. His mother panicked. His father clenched his fist. Someone from the crowd shouted, "Prophet Daniel, please talk. My family needs a word." Daniel swallowed hard. His chest tightened. His stomach twisted. He stepped back from the microphone. The crowd fell silent. Then, without planning it, without knowing where the courage came from, Daniel said, "I saw something." People leaned forward instantly. "I saw myself standing very high, on top of a tall building." His father stiffened. His mother's face drained of color. "And my parents were cheering me." Daniel continued, his voice shaking. "They told me to go higher. They told me to keep climbing." The entire hall went quiet. Not a cough, not a whisper, not a movement. But the building started shaking. And before I knew it, everything collapsed. His father started walking towards the stage immediately. Daniel's voice grew louder, like he wasn't the one talking. "And as I was falling, someone pulled me out. Someone said, 'They are raising you the wrong way.'" His father reached him and forced a smile at the crowd. "Church, don't mind the boy. He's just tired." Daniel stepped away from him. For the first time in months, his voice carried clarity, no fear. "They built this church for themselves," he said, pointing at his parents. "Not for God." Gas filled the hall. The mother rushed forward. "Daniel, stop this nonsense." He shook his head and backed up. "They forced me to prophesy. They make me speak even when I hear nothing." His parents froze. The church erupted into whispers. Some stood up, some frowned, some looked confused. Daniel wasn't done. "That's not all," he said quietly. "There are things you people don't know." He began naming details. The envelopes people gave that his parents hid, the businessman who brought a car as Thanksgiving, and how his parents sold it secretly, the couple who came for prayer at 2 a.m., and how his father demanded money before agreeing to see them, the times he cried to rest, and his mother dragged him out because crowd is waiting. He exposed everything, every dirty thing they did in private, every manipulation, every greed-driven decision, Every time they placed money above people, his parents were shaking. His mother's lips trembled uncontrollably. His father's face went red with embarrassment. "Daniel," his father barked, "go inside now." But Daniel didn't move. He looked at the church members, tired, broken, desperate people who truly believed they were meeting God here. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm sorry you trusted us." Then he turned off the microphone. Silence swallowed the room. Then chaos exploded. People began shouting. Some started crying. Some walked out. Some stayed to confront his parents. The church collapsed in minutes, not physically, but reputation-wise. Daniel's parents tried to spin it. They tried to call it spiritual attack. They tried to silence him, but it was too late. Videos were already online. Blogs picked it up. People started sharing their own experiences. Old members from Prophet Jeremiah's church commented too. Everything they tried to hide came out all at once. 3 days later, Daniel sat on his bed, legs stretched forward, staring at nothing. The house was quiet, too quiet. No visitors, no crowds, no testimonies, no envelopes. Just silence, heavy, uncomfortable silence. His father sat in the living room for hours every day, staring at the wall. His mother cried quietly at night. Their world had shattered. Daniel didn't gloat. He didn't smile. He just felt free. For the first time in years, his mind wasn't crowded. His whispers were gone. The pressure was gone. The weight was gone. He slept normally. He woke up normally and breathed normally. On the evening of the third day, he heard a soft knock on his door. It wasn't a voice. It wasn't a vision. It wasn't a message. Just a knock. He opened the door and found Prophet Jeremiah standing there. Older, calm, quiet as always. "I heard what happened," the prophet said. Daniel's eyes watered before he even knew he was crying. "I don't want to hear anything again," he whispered. Prophet Jeremiah nodded slowly. "That's good," he said softly. "You are not supposed to." Daniel frowned. "What do you mean?" "You were never meant to carry the weight the way they forced you to." The prophet answered gently. "A gift without guidance becomes a burden, and greed only makes it worse." Daniel looked down at his hands. "It's gone?" "Not gone," the prophet said. "Just resting. You're a child. You need to grow." Daniel exhaled long, shaky, relieved. The prophet touched his shoulder. "You're free now." Downstairs, his parents listened from behind the staircase, crying silently, not because they lost the church, but because they finally saw the damage they had done. Their son was never supposed to be a miracle machine, never supposed to be a prophet for profit, never supposed to carry their broken ambitions. They had misused purpose. They had abused destiny. They had turned grace into a commodity, and the collapse they feared came exactly the way Daniel saw it. Public, sudden, irreversible, necessary. The next morning, Daniel sat outside watching the sunrise. He held a cup of warm tea, legs crossed, feeling fresh air on his skin. For the first time in years, he felt like a child, and he made a quiet promise to himself. If God ever wanted to use him again, it would be on God's terms, not his parents, not the church, not the crowds. Just God and him. No pressure, no performance, no manipulation, just purpose, the right way. I hope you enjoyed this story. Give it a like and also share it with your friends and your family. I'll see you in the next. Goodbye.